The stars looked different when you were running for your life. Admiral Thack pressed his scale hand against the cold metal of the observation deck, watching his homeworld shrink into a tiny behind him. 3 months ago, he'd been planning his daughter's naming ceremony. Now she was dead, along with billions of others. "How many ships made it out?" he asked without turning around. His voice came out rougher than he intended. Lieutenant Vess shuffled through the datapad, her usually steady hand shaking. 47 vessels, sir. Most are transport ships, barely holding together. We estimate 52,000 survivors total. 52,000, from a population of 8 billion. Thack remembered the day everything changed. The Galactic Confederation had called it a routine military consultation. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime. The proposal seemed simple enough at first, a joint operation to secure valuable mining rights in the outer territories. Then they showed the real plan: complete extermination of the Kalari species. Men, women, children. Every last one of them wiped out because they happen to live on worlds rich in quantum crystals. "The Kalari are primitive," the Confederation speaker had declared, his mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. "They contribute nothing to galactic civilization. Their removal will benefit all advanced species." Other delegates nodded approvingly. Some even seemed excited about the profits. But when they called for the Zephyrian vote, Thack's people had stood as one and said no. Not just no, absolutely never. The punishment came swift and brutal. Within weeks, Confederation forces surrounded Zephyrian space. They called it a quarantine zone at first, claiming the Zephyrians carried some kind of dangerous ideological virus. Then the bombing started. Thack's people weren't warriors. They were gardeners, healers, artists. Their greatest achievement was learning to grow cities that lived and breathed alongside nature. Their weapons were designed for hunting dangerous animals, not fighting space battles. When the Confederation fleet arrived with planet crackers and orbital bombardment platforms, the outcome was never in doubt. "Sir," Vess interrupted his memories, "we're getting distress calls from the other ships. The growing light reports their life support is failing. The Harmony's dream has lost main power completely." Thack closed his eyes. They'd escape with whatever ships they could grab. Cargo haulers, research vessels, even a few luxury yachts. None of them were designed for long-range travel with this many refugees packed inside. And the children? 17 more died yesterday, mostly the very young. We don't have enough medical supplies, and the synthetic food processors can't make proper nutrition for growing Zephyrians. Every number was a face Thack knew. Little Kess from the farming districts. Old Menervex, who'd taught half the fleet how to read. The talented artist Zil, who'd painted murals that made people weep with joy. All gone. The worst part wasn't the dying. It was the silence from the rest of the galaxy. Thack had sent desperate messages to every world, every species they'd ever traded with or helped. The Zephyrians had shared their medical advances freely for centuries. They'd sent aid after natural disasters, rescued stranded ships, opened their worlds to refugees from other conflicts. Not one species answered their calls for help. Not one. "They're afraid," Vess said quietly, reading his thoughts. "The Confederation made it clear. Anyone who helps us becomes an enemy, too." Thack nodded bitterly. He understood fear. But understanding didn't make the abandonment hurt less. The galaxy had weighed their options and decided the Zephyrians weren't worth the risk. Better to let them drift in space and die quietly than risk Confederation anger. "Sir, navigation reports we're approaching the Outer Rim territories. Unexplored systems, primitive worlds. Maybe we can find somewhere the Confederation doesn't care about. The Outer Rim, where only the desperate ventured. Wild space, full of dangerous phenomena and undeveloped worlds. Most civilized species avoided it entirely. But for the Zephyrians, it represented their only hope. Set course for the nearest habitable system," Thack ordered. "And Vess, send word to all ships. Tell them we're not just looking for a place to die. We're looking for a place to rebuild." As the fleet changed course toward unknown space, Thack allowed himself one last look back toward the galaxy's core. Somewhere out there, The Confederation was probably already dividing up Zephyrian territory. The beautiful bio-cities would be stripped for valuable materials. The carefully tended ecosystems would be paved over for mining operations. But they hadn't gotten everything. They hadn't gotten the Zephyrian spirit. Somehow, despite everything, Thax still believed they could find a future worth living. It would have to be far from the galaxy that had rejected them, among whatever strange new worlds lay ahead in the darkness. The stars looked different when you were running for your life. But sometimes, if you look hard enough, they also looked like hope. Captain Jake Mitchell was halfway through his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. The bridge of the U.S. Defender went from peaceful morning routine to complete chaos in about 3 seconds. "Captain, we got multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," called out Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the sensor station. Her voice had that tight edge that meant trouble. "They're broadcasting on every frequency we can detect." Jake set down his coffee mug and moved to the command chair. The Defender was humanity's newest deep space patrol ship, barely 6 months out of Earth's orbital shipyards. They were supposed to be on a routine mapping mission, checking out some interesting signals from this sector. Finding alien refugees definitely wasn't in the mission briefings. "How many ships are we talking about?" 47 confirmed contacts, sir. They're in bad shape. Hull breaches, failing power systems, life support critical on most of them. Jake stared at the tactical display. Each red represented a ship full of living beings, and every single one of them was dying. The sensor readings showed massive structural damage, radiation leaks, and energy signatures that were barely holding together. "Can we understand what they're saying?" "The computer is working on it, Captain." "Wait. Okay, I'm getting something. It's definitely a distress call. They're asking for immediate assistance. Medical help, food, safe harbor." The communication officer, Lieutenant Ben Hayes, looked up from his station with wide eyes. "Sir, based on the language patterns, these aren't humans. We're talking about genuine alien contact here." Jake felt his heart rate spike. First contact with an alien species wasn't supposed to happen like this. There were supposed to be protocols, careful diplomatic procedures, months of planning, not desperate refugees appearing in human space with their ships falling apart. "Get me Admiral Peterson at Fleet Command," Jake ordered. "Priority Alpha." While they waited for the connection, Jake watched the alien ships on his screen. Even damaged, he could see they were beautiful in a way that human vessels weren't. Organic curves instead of straight lines, surfaces that seemed to flow like water. They looked more grown than built. Admiral Peterson's face appeared on the main screen, looking like he'd been woken up early. "Mitchell, this better be important." "Sir, we have 47 alien vessels requesting emergency assistance. They appear to be refugees, heavily damaged, life support failing on multiple ships." Peterson was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then his expression shifted into the focus intensity Jake had seen during the Mars colony crisis. "How many survivors?" "Unknown, sir. Tens of thousands at minimum." "Understood. I'm declaring a humanitarian emergency. All available ships are being diverted to your location. We have hospital ships launching from Mars Station within the hour. You're authorized to provide any assistance necessary." The connection ended, and Jake turned to his crew. "You heard the Admiral. Amy, signal those ships that help is on the way. Ben, start working on better translation protocols. Tom, get our medical bay ready for casualties." Lieutenant Tom Walsh from Engineering looked nervous. "Sir, our medical facilities are designed for humans. We don't know anything about alien biology." "Then we'll figure out as we go," Jake said firmly. "Nobody dies on my watch if I can help it." Within an hour, the space around the alien fleet looked like the busiest port in the galaxy. Human ships were arriving every few minutes. Hospital ships, cargo haulers, even civilian vessels that had volunteered to help. The response was incredible. Earth had mobilized like Jake had never seen before. Dr. Lisa Park, the chief medical officer from the hospital ship Mercy, contacted Jake directly. "Captain, we got alien children dying over here. I need to get my teams on those ships immediately, but I don't know what I'm dealing with." "Do whatever you can, Doctor. We'll worry about the protocols later." The first alien shuttle docked with the Defender 2 hours after initial contact. Jake was there to meet them personally, along with his senior staff and a hastily assembled translation team. The airlock cycled, and Jake got his first look at living aliens. They were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed to hold depths of sadness. The one in front, clearly their leader, moved with dignity despite obvious exhaustion. When he spoke, the translation device rendered his words in careful, formal English. "I am Admiral Thack of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. We seek sanctuary from those who would see us destroyed. We have children dying, and our ships fail more each hour." Jake stepped forward without hesitation. "I'm Captain Jake Mitchell, United Earthspace Navy. You're safe now. We're going to help." Admiral Thack's large eyes widened with something that might have been surprise. "Why? We are strangers to you, unknown beings from distant space. Why would you risk yourself for us?" The question caught Jake off guard. It seemed so obvious to him that he hadn't really thought about it. "Because you need help," he said simply. "That's enough." The alien admiral stared at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time since Jake had met him, Thack's expression softened into something that looked remarkably like hope. 25 years had passed since the first Zephyrian ships limped into human space, and Dr. Rachel Chin still remembered the day everything changed. She'd been a young medical student then, volunteering at the refugee camps set up across North America. Now she stood in her laboratory, watching her research partner Kes manipulate living tissue with techniques that would have seemed like magic back then. "The cancer cells are completely gone," Kes announced, her translated voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "The biotherapy adapted perfectly to human genetics." Rachel nodded, making notes on her tablet. They just cured the last major form of cancer that had plagued humanity for centuries. Not with chemicals or radiation, but with living medicine that the Zephyrians had taught them to grow. It was their 43rd major breakthrough this year alone. "You know what's funny?" Rachel said, stretching after hours of work. "My grandfather used to say that meeting aliens would either destroy us or save us. I don't think he imagined it might do both." Through the laboratory windows, they could see New Geneva sprawling below them. The city looked nothing like it had 25 years ago. Zephyrian bioarchitecture had transformed the urban landscape, buildings that cleaned the air as they grew, transport systems that flowed like living rivers through the streets, parks where human children played alongside young Zephyrians, switching between languages without even thinking about it. The integration hadn't been easy at first. There were protests, fear, political movements demanding the aliens be sent away. But time and proximity had a way of breaking down barriers. When Zephyrian doctors saved your child's life, when their agricultural techniques ended famines, when their children became friends with yours, the fear started to fade. Dr. Chun called out Tommy Nakamura, one of her human research assistants. "We're getting reports from the outer colonies. The Confederation is making moves again." Rachel's good mood evaporated. The Galactic Confederation, the same organization that had tried to genocide the Zephyrians, had been watching human space with growing concern. Earth's rapid technological advancement was making them nervous. What kind of moves? Border patrols, mostly. But they're asking pointed questions about our unauthorized technological development. Ambassador Wilson is requesting an immediate briefing. Rachel looked at Kes, who had gone very still. Even after all these years, mention of Confederation could freeze any Zephyrian with terror. They'd seen what the galaxy's so-called civilization was capable of. "They're scared," Kes said quietly. "We've advanced further in 25 years than most species do in centuries. The biotechnology, the hybrid ships, the new colonies, we're not following their rules anymore." That evening, Rachel found herself in the emergency session of the Joint Human-Zephyrian Council. The room was a perfect symbol of how their worlds had merged, human engineering supporting Zephyrian bioarchitecture, with translation systems that made communication seamless. Admiral Beth Taylor, now commanding the Earth Defense Fleet, was reviewing intelligence reports. Her ships were no longer purely human designs. They incorporated Zephyrian biotechnology that could repair battle damage in real time, adapt to new threats, and operate for decades without major overhauls. The Confederation is calling us a contaminated system, reported Ambassador David Wilson. He'd just returned from failed negotiations at the Galactic capital. They claim we're harboring enemies of galactic order and developing unauthorized technologies. Unauthorized by whom? Demanded Dr. Mike Torres from the Agricultural Council. His hybrid farming techniques now fed half the galaxy's outer rim colonies. We didn't sign their treaties. Earth was never part of their empire. Admiral Taylor activated the holographic display, showing the fleet positions throughout human space. The sight was impressive. Hundreds of hybrid vessels patrolling dozens of star systems, protecting colonies that house humans, Zephyrians, and increasingly, refugees from other species who'd heard about Earth's sanctuary policies. They're positioning for something big, Taylor said grimly. Intelligence suggests they're assembling a major fleet. They want to deal with the Earth problem before it gets any worse. Young Vess spoke up from the Zephyrian delegation. She'd been just a child when the refugees first arrived, but now she served as a cultural liaison. My grandmother always said the Confederation fears two things above all else: successful resistance to their authority, and proof that their way isn't the only way. We're both, Rachel realized. We prove that the inferior allies could not only survive but thrive. We've shown that cooperation works better than domination. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed the implications. Earth hadn't just saved the Zephyrians. They created living proof that the Confederation's entire worldview was wrong. A primitive species and their refugee allies had built something better than the galaxy's greatest empire. So what do we do? Asked Dr. Torres. Admiral Taylor's expression hardened with determination that Rachel remembered from the early days, when humanity first decided to help desperate strangers. Same thing we did 25 years ago. We don't abandon family. Outside the council chambers, hybrid cities stretched toward the stars, filled with the laughter of children who didn't see any difference between human and alien friends. Ships that blended technology and biology patrolled space lanes that connected dozens of worlds. And somewhere in the galaxy's core, ancient powers were finally beginning to understand that their greatest mistake wasn't underestimating humanity's strength. It was underestimating their capacity to care about others. The integration was complete. Now came the real test. The massive Confederation fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of metal locusts. 200 ships, each one the size of a city, arranged in perfect battle formation around Earth's solar system. Fleet Commander Gorek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Authority, expecting this to be the shortest campaign of his career. Scanned the system. He ordered his tactical officer, "I want to know exactly what these primitives think they can do against the might of the Confederation." The results made him pause. The human fleet waiting for them wasn't what his intelligence reports had described. These weren't the crude metal ships they'd expected. Instead, his sensors detected vessels that seemed to breathe and pulse with organic life, their hulls shifting and adapting even as he watched. "Sir," his tactical officer reported nervously, "I'm reading technology signatures we don't recognize. These ships appear to be growing new armor plating in real time." On Earth, Admiral Beth Taylor stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching Confederation Armada deploy. Around her, the command crew worked with calm efficiency, humans and Zephyrians side by side. Their hybrid technology responded to thoughts as much as commands. "They certainly brought enough ships," commented Commander Vess, now serving as Taylor's tactical advisor. Her grandmother had once fled from these same forces, but Vess showed no fear. 200 vessels. They're not taking any chances. "Good," Taylor replied grimly. "Neither are we." The communication channel crackled to life, carrying Fleet Commander Gorek's arrogant tones across space. "Primitive species of the third planet. You will immediately surrender all Zephyrian criminals in your custody. You will also submit to Confederation oversight of your technological development. You have 1 standard hour to comply." Taylor looked around the bridge at faces she'd known for decades. Dr. Rachel Chun, now serving as science advisor, monitoring the bioship systems. Captain Jake Mitchell, promoted to fleet operations, coordinating with the outer system defenses. Young Tommy Nakamura, brilliant enough to make the hybrid weapon system sing. Open a channel to the entire fleet, Taylor ordered. When the green light confirmed the connection, she spoke words that would echo through galactic history. All ships. This is Admiral Taylor. The message is simple. Nobody abandons family. All vessels, weapons free. The battle began with the Confederation's standard tactic. Overwhelming firepower designed to break enemy morale instantly. Hundreds of energy beams lanced through space toward a human fleet. Enough destructive power to crack planets. But something impossible happened. The human ships didn't just absorb the hits. They learned from them. Biomechanical hulls analyzed each energy signature and began adapting defenses in real time. Damaged sections healed themselves within minutes. Weapon systems evolved between shots, becoming more accurate and more powerful. What are they doing? Gorek demanded as his tactical displays showed enemy ships actually getting stronger under fire. How are they adapting so quickly? His science officer, pale with shock, stammered through the readings. Sir, their ships appear to be alive. The hull material is responding to damage by developing immunities. It's like fighting a virus that gets stronger every time you attack it. The human response was swift and devastating. Fighter craft that moved like living things swarmed between the massive Confederation vessels. Each fighter was piloted by both a human and a Zephyrian, their minds linked through bioneural interfaces that let them react faster than any computer. Captain Jake Mitchell led the first fighter wing, his Zephyrian partner Kel sharing his thoughts and reflexes. Together, they could anticipate enemy movements before the Confederation pilots even decided to make them. This is incredible, Kel whispered through their neural link as they danced between energy beams that would have vaporized them. I can feel the ship responding to our emotions, our instincts. Just like riding a horse, Jake replied, pulling them through an impossible maneuver that brought them within striking distance of a Confederation cruiser. You don't control it, you become part of it. Their weapons weren't traditional energy beams or missiles. They were living projectiles that burrowed through enemy hulls like metallic parasites, disrupting systems and feeding information back to the hybrid fleet. Fleet Commander Gorek watched in growing horror as the superior numbers meant nothing. Every advantage the Confederation possessed, better weapons, stronger shields, more experienced crews, crumbled against an enemy that simply refused to follow the rules of space combat. Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count them, his tactical officer reported. The enemy vessels are coordinating like a single organism. When we damage one ship, the entire fleet learns how to counter our weapons. But the real shock came when the human fleet didn't just offend. They attacked with fury that caught the Confederation completely off guard. Decades of anger at the galaxy's cruelty, years of watching refugee ships limp into human space with tales of Confederation brutality, all of it focused into a single, overwhelming response. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? Admiral Taylor broadcast to the entire Confederation fleet as her ships systematically dismantled their formations. We don't fight for territory or resources or glory. We fight for each other. And we never, ever abandon family. Within 6 hours, Fleet Commander Gorek found himself facing total defeat at the hands of species his empire had dismissed as primitive and worthless. The impossible had happened. The galaxy's greatest military force had been broken by the refusal of one small world to let their adopted family be destroyed. 5 years after the Great Battle, Ambassador Robert Hayes stood before the Reformed Galactic Assembly, representing something that had never existed before in cosmic history. Behind him sat delegates from 63 different species, all united under the banner of the Terran Commonwealth. What had started as humanity's desperate rescue of one refugee fleet had grown into a new way of organizing galactic civilization. The old Confederation Assembly Hall looked different now. Gone were the rigid hierarchies and intimidating displays of military might. Instead, the chamber buzzed with genuine cooperation. Species that have been enemies for millennia now work side by side, sharing technology and resources freely. 5 years ago, Hayes began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, the Confederation told us that compassion was weakness. They said that helping others would destroy us. Today, I stand before you representing a commonwealth of worlds that proves them wrong. In the gallery above, Admiral Thack watched with quiet satisfaction. The elderly Zephyrian had lived to see his people not just survive, but thrive beyond his wildest dreams. His great-grandchildren barely remembered the burning homeworld. To them, Earth was simply home, and humans were the family who had chosen to save strangers when everyone else looked away. The transformation hadn't happened through conquest. That was the truly remarkable part. After the Confederation's humiliating defeat at Earth, humanity could have easily become the galaxy's new overlords. Instead, they'd done something unprecedented. They'd offered partnership to their enemies. "We don't want to rule anyone," President Linda Carter had announced in the aftermath of the battle. "We just want to make sure nobody else has to run for their lives like the Zephyrians did." The result was a cascading collapse of the old order. Species after species looked at what the Commonwealth offered: protection without conquest, technology sharing without exploitation, acceptance without assimilation, and decided they wanted that instead of Confederation rule. The Kalari were the first to join, the same species Confederation had tried to exterminate decades ago. When human and Zephyrian ships arrived in their system offering protection, the primitive beings could hardly believe it. Within months, their natural talents for quantum mechanics had revolutionized Commonwealth navigation systems. Then came the Helix Collective, fleeing Confederation labor camps. The Void Dancers, escaping forced military service. The Crystal Singers, whose homeworld had been strip-mined for resources. Each refugee species brought new knowledge, new perspectives, new solutions to problems that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. Dr. Rachel Chun, now director of the Commonwealth Science Institute, often marveled at how quickly innovation accelerated when different minds worked together freely. "We've advanced more in 5 years than the Confederation did in 5 centuries, she told her mixed-species research teams. Turns out diversity really is strength. But the most dramatic change was in the former Confederation worlds themselves. Without the threat of overwhelming military force, many of their subject species simply walked away. Entire sectors declared independence and requested Commonwealth membership. Others reformed their governments along Commonwealth lines, emphasizing cooperation over domination. Fleet Commander Gorek, the same officer who had led the failed attack on Earth, now served as a Commonwealth military advisor. The irony wasn't lost on him. "I spent 40 years enforcing Confederation rule through fear," he admitted to Admiral Taylor during one of their strategy sessions. "In 5 years, you accomplished more through kindness than we managed in 4 centuries of threats." The Commonwealth military was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Ships from dozens of species working together. Their crews mixed and their technologies merged into something greater than the sum of their parts. But more importantly, they fought for something worth defending: the right of every species to choose their own path. "We've had requests from 17 more systems this month," reported Captain Jake Mitchell during the monthly council meeting. "Former Confederation strongholds are asking for protection. They're tired of being afraid." Young Tommy Nakamura, now a senior technological advisor, pulled up the holographic display showing Commonwealth space. It looked like a spreading web of light, connecting worlds that had never known peace before. "The network effects are incredible," he explained. "Each new member makes the whole system stronger." But perhaps the most telling moment came when a delegation from the Confederation's core worlds arrived at Earth, not to threaten or demand, but to negotiate. These were the species that had once considered themselves the galaxy's natural rulers, now asking for terms to join the alliance they had tried to destroy. Ambassador Hayes looked out at the assembly, seeing faces from across the galaxy united by a simple principle that humanity had taught them: nobody gets left behind. The Zephyrians had been abandoned by the galaxy, written off as weak and useless. Humanity's refusal to accept that judgment had changed everything. "The Commonwealth doesn't claim to be perfect," Hayes concluded his address. "We don't have all the answers. But we have something the old Confederation never understood. We have each other. And that makes us stronger than any empire built on fear." As the Assembly voted to formally dissolve the remaining Confederation structures and recognize the Commonwealth as the galaxy's new organizing principle, Admiral Thack smiled. The refugees who had fled their burning homeworld had not just found sanctuary. They had helped build something better. The galaxy had chosen power over compassion once. Humanity had shown them a different way, and the universe would never be the same.